something similar. I didn't watch their little mini series, but when I was on YouTube, it like of course recommended it to me and everything.
Yeah.
So that's kind of interesting. I'd like to see if any of the other teams in the AFC North end up trying to give it a shot. But all right. Well, looks like we're online on Twitch and we're online on Facebook, so we'll figure out YouTube later. Technical difficulties. All right. Cool, man. Cool. So let's get rolling. What do you want to talk about first with Madden ratings? Who do you want to look at? Do you want to look at team? Do you want to look at the positions first? Do you want to look at one team at a time? What you want to do?
We can talk just about position by position, different guys in the division. I think that's a good way to frame it.
Okay. Cool. Unfortunately, I don't think the overall ratings are out yet for the teams.
I didn't see anything like team defense, team offense.
Yeah, I'd be interested to see that. I'm excited for that to come up. So let's switch over here. We got the monitor going. All right, let's start off with kickers.
I mean, yeah. That's how every conversation should start off.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, Tucker.
Right. So here's the thing that I think is actually kind of funny is that completely removing all of the teams, we talked about it last year about how Justin Tucker was like snubbed from the Pro Bowl, and this just confirms it. Right?
Well, yeah, I mean...
So if you look over the entire NFL, Justin Tucker is an 87. The next best down is 85, which is Robbie Gould. Who was it that went? Wasn't it like the dude from the Jets or something?
Jason Myers?
I don't even remember. Who ended up going to the
Pro Bowl? Who made the Pro Bowl was Jason Myers.
Well, I don't even see him on here. Is he just not in the NFL anymore?
Out here, probably not, for missing so many extra points.
Right? Shoot. Hey, coming next week, where are they now? But I just saw Zane Gonzalez is on the Cardinals. He's a whopping 64 as a kicker. So make sure you pick that guy up. So I guess before we get too deep into Madden ratings, how reflective do you think Madden ratings are to individual player skill as a whole? Like how high would you hold that?
I mean, not much.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of Madden ratings have to do with the hype. Man, I was just looking at him. There was a guy I wanted to talk about, and I don't even remember who it is now. But
that's what happens when we live, baby.
yeah. But yeah, I mean, you know, a lot of it's hype, especially these preseason rankings. Like, one thing that's good that didn't used to happen before, like the live updates and things like that could happen, was whatever their ratings were their ratings for the whole year at one point. And now we get weekly roster updates, and they can kind of adjust things on the fly, which is way better, because then eventually,
especially for rookies, right?
And and as guys emerge, Todd Gurley's a 97. That was a big one that stuck out to me, because you respect Todd Gurley and what he's done, but I'm not so sure something's not really wrong with Todd Gurley.
Yeah, you think so?
After the way the season ended, whether it's some kind of injury or I don't even know. He just disappeared.
I think that he did a good job, obviously, throughout the entire season, and I think that those last two games he really tried his hardest to like push through. But I agree. I think something was like seriously wrong with him, like he was hurt or something. But I guess we'll see what comes out of it this year, because he just wasn't playing himself. I mean, CJ Anderson, that motherfucking bowling ball, ended up like killing it, right?
Yeah, he did pretty well.
I don't know. I don't think there's any reason why Todd Gurley shouldn't have been able to be successful. I mean, other than I guess the Patriots just being the Patriots and having the playbook, right? But metaphorical, not like physically, right? Just basically the Patriots did their research.
Well, maybe.
Yeah, right.
I've heard some Sean McVay interviews, and basically he kind of like outsmarted himself.
Sure.
As far as like, because the Patriots are so different that he said he thinks he watched too much film.
Mm-hmm.
And rather than focus on what the Patriots had been doing, he watched all the way back in the season and basically just overthought it.
Right. What are they gonna do?
Right.
Instead of what we've seen from them. Yeah, you probably like watched some old like Tom Brady footage from '92.
Right.
Something like that, whatever.
So,
all right.
Yeah.
So let's talk overalls. We kind of spoiled this for ourselves yesterday a little bit, I think, unfortunately. I think it would have been nice to kind of do it just on the fly or whatever. But highest rated player in the AFC North through and through. You know who it is? Do you remember who it was?
I do.
Who was it?
Earl Thomas.
So this is actually changed. I don't know if they just changed overnight or what it was.
Oh, I see that.
Yep.
All right, I've got it pulled up now. So
OBJ, wide receiver 96. I'm surprised that they already changed the ratings because we were just talking about it yesterday, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe we were looking at something wrong or maybe I was messed up. But yeah, man, looks like OBJ is the number one. Do you think that's warranted?
Probably. I mean,
well, let's talk wide receivers just overall.
Who's going to be better? My biggest problem with OBJ being a 96 is that AJ Green is the next receiver and he's 90.
Yeah, that's what I was just about to say. So looking at overall just receivers, 96 down to 90.
I'm in the camp that for a career, AJ Green is pretty criminally overlooked.
Mm-hmm.
I think he belongs in the same conversations as Julio,
right,
and AB,
right,
and DeAndre Hopkins and those types of guys.
Mm-hmm.
He just has the misfortune of playing in Cincinnati where nobody really pays attention to him, and
right, and they always just seem to fall like just short of success.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think it's unfortunate too. I think AJ Green is, like you said, criminally underrated, and it just comes down to those things that we talked about last year. Is like his personality. You know, he's not that big, blown up individual. You know, like OBJ, right?
Yeah,
he's in the spotlight.
He's the anti-OBJ.
Exactly. Yeah. He just puts in the work and gets it done. I mean, watching the footage of him last year, which is more Bengals than I could have ever cared to watch. It really is apparent just how he makes those clutch catches, but also how much Andy Dalton just forces the ball to him. I'm like, oh no, that's going to be a pick. And then AJ Green pulls it off. So, yeah, criminally underrated. The next being Juju. So Juju is the number one receiver on the Steelers. Not really much of a surprise there, I don't think.
Right.
88. I don't know, man. The dude had a pretty damn good season last year. Right? What was it, like 1,700 yards I think he had? Or 1,600, something crazy like that.
Yeah. I think you and I are in different camps on Juju. Just from, we talked about
14,
Juju
26.
and AB a little bit yesterday. And I think obviously he had a better statistical season.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if he had more touchdowns than AB.
He did not. He had 7.
But every other statistic, I think he led. Even receptions and receiving yards, I think.
So he had so AB was 1297 on yards, Juju was 1426, Juju on touchdowns was 7, AB was 15, which is pretty ludicrous. Yeah. Receptions, AB was 104, Juju was 111.
Yeah.
So
it was close.
Yeah.
I mean, AB's a living legend,
right? But even the fact that
great.
Juju was like so on his heels, do you think 88's appropriate?
It's probably about right. I mean, he's the number one receiver on that team now.
Yeah, now he is. Which means it's going to be totally different for him.
We'll see what he's made of.
Right. I mean, what's the last serviceable number 2 that AB had? Yeah, like, you know what I'm saying?
Man, I'm just drawing a big old brain fart. Emmanuel Sanders. I don't know if he was even ever a number 2 there. When he was there, he kind of went to Denver and then
kind of blew up.
Yeah,
that's fair, I guess. But
yeah, I mean, well, it's time to see what Juju's really made of this year. And
Right.
it'll be interesting. They added Dante Moncrief in the offseason, formerly of the Jags last year, and he spent several years with the Colts.
Yeah.
And then it's up to James Washington and guys like that to step forward. And
Yeah. Is
really
Justin Hunter still on the
contribute
team?
Contribute more than
Oh, that's right.
they
Switzer.
otherwise have. Yeah. They've got their slot guy. They've got their Julian Edelman guy.
I guess also on the Bengals is Tyler Boyd. I think he's probably a little bit underrated, given that he's an 83 and how close he is to like Jarvis Landry. I think Tyler Boyd had a better season last year than Jarvis Landry, personally, especially with Jarvis being like the number one receiver on the Browns. I don't know. Tyler Boyd had just such, and this isn't like a knock against Jarvis Landry. This was really just like exclaiming how much of an exceptional season Tyler Boyd had last year. Really impressed. I know you were happy with it in fantasy, right?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and that was probably a product of like AFC homer drafting. You know, otherwise I probably never even would have touched him. But
right. And then let's talk Ravens receivers. Willie Snead, the fourth, 78. That's probably some legacy right there. That's probably some like old ratings that have been carrying him through this long.
He had a good season. He was their best receiver last year. They
You think
just
so? More than John Brown?
use the receivers. Yeah, I think at the end of the year especially, I think Flacco and John Brown had like a connection for sure, undeniably. But once Lamar was in, it seemed like he liked Snead. Yeah, I mean, the Ravens receivers are atrocious.
Right.
There's no way around it.
Marquise Brown being the number 2 receiver at 77. I mean, he's a rookie, so we'll see how that improves over the season.
There's a lot of hype around him and Boykin, and there's a lot of talk about, so this is a contract year for Snead, about the Ravens probably letting him walk and going back to the well in the draft and hitting wide receiver again and trying to build kind of a young core of wide receivers. And
build for the future.
We'll see how that goes. Yeah.
All right. Well, let's go to the next big skill position, probably even the first big skill position. Where do you think, without looking,
okay,
what do you think Lamar Jackson's rating is?
I am gonna say Lamar Jackson is a 76.
76. All right, let's see.
Oh!
Shut up. Nice. Well played, sir. Well played.
But RG3 should be closer to Lamar.
I don't disagree. Yeah, that for sure. If anything, I would actually put RG3. I don't know. Maybe not higher, but I don't know. Yeah, I wouldn't say that just yet. But I don't know. Yeah, 76.
RG3 is also way too slow.
Yeah, you think so?
He's an 85. So to give a range on it, Lamar is 94.
Right.
Baker is 82 and RG3 is 85. So he's closer to Baker than Lamar.
Right. Let's see.
But God,
what
Lamar
about throwing?
Jackson awareness
THP?
69.
THP is that
Nice.
throwing power? Yeah.
Yeah.
87. Wow, Lamar Jackson has a higher throwing power
Then Baker.
No, than
RG3.
RG3. Yeah. Baker
Yeah,
has higher
about
throwing power
accuracy.
than Ben. That's not surprising though. He's old as fuck.
Yeah. The Levitard Show did a poll recently asking, has Ben Roethlisberger eaten a vegetable in the last 10 years?
What was the consensus?
I don't even remember.
That's awesome.
Basically, they talked about it, and they were like, well, if you consider potatoes a vegetable, then yes.
Oh, man, that's awesome. I love it. So as far as accuracy goes, short, mid, deep, yeah, man, I'm surprised Lamar Jackson's are even like in the 70s and 80s. And that's not even disrespecting him. It just is.
Yeah.
You know, I'm
The
actually
guy's got work to do.
surprised at Baker's accuracy rating as well. Like, if you look at some of those throws that he had last year, man, and they were just like in this like pin hair, like, or pinhead, like, just tiny little position. And he just made it spot on into the receiver's hands. I was actually like,
Yeah,
really
his
impressed by
accuracy is incredible.
that. So I think he might have got snubbed a little bit on that, but that's all right. All right. Oh, pass blocking. Baker Mayfield has the highest.
And blocking for Jarvis.
Blocking for Jarvis for
and
sure.
OBJ now. I
That's
guess
true.
OBJ's been slinging it in camp too.
Yeah, man. And you were saying like, what did he say? He wanted to have like a throw off with Aaron Rodgers and Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah.
Right, and then Patrick Mahomes responded by throwing a football out of the stadium.
Yeah.
Haven't heard much since then. All right, let's talk running backs.
Okay.
So, I guess we'll get into the Browns next episode. Why can I? There we go. But
Right.
But Kareem Hunt, we'll see how many games he plays this year. We should do over under. What do you think? So his 8-game suspension, right? Do you think not over under? I guess it would be. Do you think that he will serve his 8 games, or do you think he'll end up serving more than 8 games? And then we'll leave that as a cliffhanger.
For next week?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just straight up. Do you think that he will serve? No. Answer. Do you think he'll serve more than 8 games?
No.
And then we'll talk about it in detail next week.
No, I don't think he'll serve more. I mean, unless something else comes out that we haven't seen already.
Okay.
I mean, we saw the video before they levied the suspension.
Mm-hmm.
So unless he does something else, didn't he just get like arrested?
That's what I'm
for
talking
something?
about. Yeah. So he just got
What was
arrested
that for?
again for assaulting
Like
somebody.
Oh, assault? Yeah, that's not a good look.
Yeah. So, anyways, Kareem Hunt is the number 1 rated running back in the AFC North by Madden standards. However, he at least won't play 8 games. We know that right off the bat, right? So next up, Joe Mixon, probably pretty appropriate, I would say.
Yeah, I think so.
Because as far as Mark Ingram goes, he's more of like a, the north-south power back kind of guy, right? Up the center. Not saying that that's like the, what his skill is limited to, but that's what we've seen from him as far as use. How's Mark Ingram's blocking? I wonder, just in general, right? Because
I don't know. The weird thing is, like, I don't think of, and maybe I just haven't watched enough Saints games, or because he shares the load with Kamara. Like, I don't think of him as like necessarily better than Chubb and Connor. Like, I think of him more as like a specialty back, and like I said, maybe I just not watched him enough. Like, I'm happy to have him on the Ravens. I think he's an upgrade to the running backs room for sure. But I don't know. Maybe he's more versatile than I give him credit for.
Yeah. Maybe. I don't know. Pass block 65. That's the highest of all of the AFC North running backs. So we'll see if they use that pass block much at all.
Not need to do much of that.
Yeah. No need for that shit.
No, that's what we got tight ends for.
Right. 3 of them. 4 of them? Who knows? Be the first team in the league to pull out like the 4 tight end fucking scheme.
Hell yeah, leave it to Harbaugh because he wants to try to be like Belichick Jr. with all the like weird rule bending and shit like that he tries to do.
What was the weird rule that they did last year?
It was at the end of, I don't remember if it was last year. Yeah, at the end of a Bengals game, they had to punt with like 20 seconds left, and so they snapped to Sam Cook, and he just like ran backwards, and literally everyone on the field held their guy and drew a flag and let the clock run out.
Nice.
Because the game can end on a penalty by the offense.
Nice.
So they just ran the clock out and held everybody in.
I wonder if they'll change that.
I don't know. Who cares?
Yeah, whatever. Fuck them. Kenneth Dixon, Gus Edwards. Over, under, proper, I guess.
I mean, when you get in that range of Madden ratings, like in the 70s, like, what's the difference between 73 and 78? Like,
Right.
I don't know.
I'd be impressed to see what they can pull off this season. I think they'll improve. I don't think they were that bad.
Yeah, I'm sure they will. And this offense, I mean, it's their time to shine, man. Like more than any other team in the league, probably. Like this is the team you want to be on if you're a running back and you want touches.
Yeah.
You know? I think Mark Ingram is capable of being a workhorse guy, but I don't think he's going to be asked to be. That's just not the style of the league really anymore these days. Like,
Right.
Other than Zeke and Todd Gurley last year, I don't think.
Well, I mean, towards the end of the year, he was sharing touches with CJ.
Right, until the end of the year. Yeah.
But yeah, we'll see. And then Duke Johnson still on the Browns.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll see what happens with him. He's rated at an 80, so it's good that I guess that he's in the 80s. But
we'll revisit that later in the pod.
All right, sounds good.
Something for that.
All right.
The last position I really wanted to talk about was cornerback.
Okay, just straight up corner, or you want to talk just DB in general, like safeties as well?
Yeah, we can do both corners and safeties.
Okay.
Let me pull these bad boys up. So, my first beef is the highest Ravens corner in a secondary that was the best in the division last year is an 85. So Marlon Humphrey is an 85, Jimmy Smith is an 84, and Brandon Carr is an 81. I think Brandon Carr is properly rated there. And I think Marlon Humphrey and Jimmy Smith are being robbed. Criminally underrated. I think they're both better than Denzel Ward. I think part of Denzel Ward's rating is like the Browns hype train, which goes back to even last year as far as like him making the Pro Bowl. I'm not taking the Pro Bowl away from him. He was fantastic, and there are multiple guys in the conference worthy of being a Pro Bowl corner. He's great, but the fact that Humphrey or Jimmy Smith aren't even particularly close really bothers me.
I would tend to agree with you with Denzel Ward. I think that 88 is like proper, but proper. But I also think that Marlon Humphrey and Jimmy Smith should be higher. I like almost, if not in the 90s, then at least 89s or something.
Yeah, it's kind of perplexing to me. Like,
I mean,
Marlon Humphrey had a standout breakout year last year, and when Jimmy Smith was hurt, he was he was following number ones around the field.
Right.
So, but hopefully they'll adjust it and these guys play well. Tony Jefferson, I think, is very underrated. I'm just real high on the Ravens secondary.
I mean, I think appropriately so. Not even just being
fan. They're bringing everyone back and then replacing Eric Weddle with Earl Thomas. And as much as you want to say about Earl Thomas coming back off an injury and also being old, he's not as old as Eric Weddle.
Right.
He's on another level athletically, at least. So. Yeah, I guess Demarius Randall. I don't think Demarius Randall. I got my wires crossed. 86 is good for him.
What about Joe Hayden? I say overrated personally, and that's not even Steelers hate.
Yeah, I think he's overrated in comparison to where they have some of these other guys.
Sure.
Like in a vacuum, 84 for a number one corner. Like, sure. Like, it's not exceedingly.
But to say that Joe Hayden is the same skill level as Jimmy Smith
is absurd.
Right.
Yeah. After what we saw last year, the fact that Tony Jefferson is down there at 84, 3 points above Jesse Bates, like,
man, even as much as obviously the Bengals secondary isn't very good, I would expect Kirkpatrick to be a little bit higher as well. He's only a 78.
Yeah.
I mean,
me
he
too.
kind of carried what little secondary they had to himself. He was prone to penalties towards the later part of the season, but I would say that was probably due to a little bit of frustration and, you know, maybe not for thinking of the right phrase. I was going to say lack of effort, but I don't know. I think towards the end of the season, probably got a little frustrated. The rest of the team probably stopped giving a little bit less of a fuck when they were 4-10 or whatever. So maybe he was drawing some of those penalties because he wasn't giving up. But
Yeah.
I don't know. I like Kirkpatrick, so maybe I'm trying to frame him too much in this positive light. But
Yeah.
I think
and
78's a little low. I also think Terrence Mitchell is a little low as well. But
along the lines of underrated guys, I think Mike Hilton should be closer to Joe Hayden.
Yeah.
Whether that means bringing Hayden down or bringing Mike Hilton up. He was a stalwart for that team. He was one of a few big bright spots on that defense last year.
Yeah.
But yeah, Tavon Young, I'm high on him, but that's probably a homer take. But if Drake Kirkpatrick's going to be 78, 77 for Tavon Young, sure.
You want to talk rookies
I think,
at all?
What's that?
You want to talk rookies at all before we wrap up the Madden ratings?
Yeah, we can.
I don't know if I can single it to just rookies. If it's going to let me. No, it's not letting me right now. It was the other day, though.
If you go to the top of the page...
Gotcha, rookie ratings.
Go to ratings, you can go to rookie ratings.
Right, but then it just loads the whole new page.
Oh.
Yeah. Oh, well.
Oh, yeah, that's weird. It's just a bunch of top
Yeah, because yesterday it was, it was before the other ratings were released, but...
Yeah. Okay.
How about 99s? Let's talk 99s real quick. We got a little bit of time. I don't know. Unless you got to get running.
Yeah. Yeah, we can.
So there's 4 99s this year, right?
Yeah, I agree with all but one, I guess. It's kind of defense heavy, which is an interesting shift.
Right.
Especially not having typically Madden tries to kind of trend along with the cover athlete. Like AB was the cover athlete, and they added a bunch of fine-tuning wide receiver controls that you could do. Mahomes is the cover athlete this year, and you have 399 defensive players, which Aaron Donald, duh.
Yeah.
I think he's probably the player in the league that has the highest gap between himself and the next best player at his position. Khalil Mack, obviously. Bobby Wagner was a surprise for me, but I actually really like it because I think that he doesn't get enough credit for what he does up there.
It was a surprise, but then I saw it and I was like, I guess it makes sense.
Yeah, I'm down with Bobby Wagner. I get down with Bobby Wagner. And then DeAndre Hopkins, which props to DeAndre Hopkins. When he was down there in quarterback no man's land with Tom Savage Gardens and Yates,
Brian Hoyer.
He didn't get enough attention for what he was doing. And now that Deshaun is there, he's getting that attention because they're exciting to watch and they're fun.
Right.
And AB is in 98 now, but I don't think AB did anything last year
worthy of
to show, at least as far as just pure skill goes, because you can't take personality into account on Madden ratings.
No, yeah.
To demote him down to a 98, I mean, he's still arguably the best receiver in the game. And I think DeAndre Hopkins is typically on the fringe of that conversation. You talk about AB and you talk about Julio, OBJ, and it may still be a product of him not being talked about for so long, but I feel like DeAndre Hopkins is an afterthought to most, or like a dark horse type of guy in that conversation, where people are like, well, a guy that doesn't get a lot of credit is DeAndre, and he's not one of the first line guys that people think about as the best receiver in the game. So it was a surprise to me, but cool, good for him.
Yeah, I almost feel like my initial reaction was, I feel like they're getting back, like giving back to him after years of, you know, snubbing him a little bit, probably. That was my initial reaction. It was kind of like, oh, I guess he's due. Like, you know, not to say that he obviously doesn't deserve to be, you know, a top tier, high level, you know, athlete like that, you know. But that was my initial reaction as well. So I see where you're coming from.
It's kind of like a career achievement award a little bit.
Right. It's like Pro Bowls, like we talked about. You know, it's like, oh, it's just his turn, right?
Yeah.
No, but again, not taking away from him that he shouldn't be, you know, 99 or anything like that. DeAndre Hopkins is a monster. You know, I guess I don't want to get too into other teams though, but I'm interested because I said last year that the Texans were like a good offensive lineman away from being like a scary playoff contender, and they drafted for offensive line this year. So I'm excited to see what happens. I don't know if Will Fuller is still there or if he's healthy or what his gig is, but if Will Fuller can stay healthy and if he's with him, let's see. Let's look real quick.
He's there.
I want to say like I saw something about him that like I was like, oh damn, I got disappointed.
Yeah,
no, he's still.
I feel like you can never really
Texans.
count on his health.
Right. I mean, it looks like he's still with the Texans. So yeah. We'll see. That's such a shame too, man, that he keeps getting hurt. I mean, some guys are just injury prone though, man. It's just the way that it is.
Yeah.
But yeah,
82.
Getting a little off topic, I guess. So let's meander on down to talking a little bit about the Bengals.
Mosey on down. Yeah, I think that the time that we stopped podcasting was like the week that Zach Taylor got hired. I don't think we talked about him very much.
No, I don't think so either.
Yeah, it's one of those things that like he breathed the same air as Sean McVay at some point, and so he garnered a lot of interest from some NFL teams. It's an interesting hire. It's a trendy hire, which is interesting for a team like the Bengals, who have a pretty boring coaching history. And they drafted a quarterback this year, but they didn't draft a quarterback high. I don't think they didn't draft the guy that's going to be tied to Zach Taylor, which is what you see a lot with a rookie head coach.
Ryan Finley in the fourth round.
Mediocre record for a team that lost their coach, so it's not like they were 2-14 and fired their coach.
Right.
So it'll be interesting. He's a big fan of play action, which I think is perfect in the game this year. And it's kind of a chicken or the egg thing, talking about whether the good teams run play action and they're good at it because they're good teams, or whether play action leads to offensive success in the NFL today. But that means that Joe Mixon has to be a reliable threat, which means that Joe Mixon is going to be involved. And despite the Madden ratings, I think Joe Mixon's the best running back in the division by a healthy margin. I know Nick Chubb is fantastic.
Yeah, I don't think we saw enough Nick Chubb yet. Not to say I'm not
right.
What I'm saying is that I don't know what he'll be this year.
Yeah, that's fair.
But so I think with Joe Mixon, I think that's probably pretty fair.
The Bengals haven't had back-to-back 1,000-yard rushers since I think like 2010, 2011. So it'll be interesting to see with their number one draft pick getting hurt, Jonah Williams, and them losing Clint Bowling. It'll be see how they adapt, but so much offensive talent on the field that it's not like anybody can key on the run when you've got AJ Green and Tyler Boyd and Tyler Eifert out there.
Right. Well, yeah. So you put a lot of stuff into that. So let's kind of dissect some things. Yeah. So first off,
I got on a roll. And
so first off, let's talk about the offensive line. So like you said, their number one draft pick is basically out for the season. They're already calling him out for the season. What was it
he's done.
Like his knee exploded or something.
I thought it was a shoulder.
Or maybe. Yeah, I don't know. Either way,
I think I wrote it.
he's
wrote it
done.
down here.
Dunskies.
Yeah.
On top of that, Clint Bowling, their guard, he just retired. Said he was looking at it for his family.
Like this week.
Yeah, like he just said that. So it's like, well, okay then. All right.
Yeah.
Frank Pollock, who was their offensive line coach last year, who was with the Cowboys the like 2 or 3 years that they had like, you know, one of the best offensive lines. He left them as well. And we were talking about it a little bit before the podcast, but I think their offensive line improved a little bit last year. They weren't as hapless as they were the year before, and I was interested to see them continue to improve with decent coaching, what kind of direction they would be able to move in. But unfortunately, looks like he's gone. So now they've got someone else. I already forgot his name, but he's only got 4 years experience, and he was like a former quarterback, right? But so yeah, their offensive line. If you had high hopes for that this year, it just seems like the Bengals might be the same Bengals this year. I don't know. It's upsetting because if they could have gotten their offensive line right, it would be interesting to see how much more they can improve. And we saw it again, watching more Bengals than I ever cared to watch. If you give Dalton the time and the opportunity, like, he can make things happen. Again, I'm not saying that he's like Aaron Rodgers or anything like that, but I think he's much better than people give him credit for. And, you know, we tried to dissect and break down his interceptions. A lot of his interceptions were not his fault. They were, not to say that, you know, he's completely excused from them, but there were situations where it looked like, you know, the receiver just wasn't in the right spot, you know, or whatever it was. Someone didn't step back the way they were supposed to, whatever. So, yeah, it's unfortunate. It really is. And then, like you said, they got Zach Taylor now. So we talked about it before. You said he breathed the same air as McVay, you know, so he's got the job. And so Zach Taylor has been quarterback's coach for the now he's the coach for the Bengals. He was a quarterback's coach for the Rams, the assistant wide receivers coach for the Rams, and then he was the quarterback's coach for the Dolphins, assistant quarterback's coach for the Dolphins, and then offensive coordinator and quarterback's coach for the Dolphins. That's his repertoire. So he has coached 2 quarterbacks in his entire existence in the NFL. One of them obviously being Jared Goff. So the other one, Dolphins, 2012 to 2015. Do you know who it was?
Oh, is that before Tannehill, or is that Tannehill?
That's Tannehill. That's only
Tannehill. I can never
Tannehill.
remember how long he's been in the league because he seems like such a young quarterback.
Right, because we never see him because he always gets like obliterated,
Yeah.
right?
So also like you'll throw in like Matt Moore, whatever Dolphins guys you want to put in there.
Right.
Yeah, not exactly high-powered offense.
Exactly right. So, yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
Actually, no. Matt Moore was not
connection-
until 2016, so he was already gone. So no, I guess Tannehill was there for all of 12, 13, and 14 and 15.
Wow.
Wikipedia says he was the only starting quarterback those years.
Wow. So Tannehill is entering his 7th or 8th year in the league.
That's wild.
That's crazy.
It's funny because I don't know. That's so weird because last year I was thinking to myself, like you were, I guess, of Tannehill being like a young guy and being like, oh yeah, we'll probably see something good from him.
Take the
No, I
step
guess
this
not.
year.
I guess not. No.
Yeah.
No, they're done.
No, man, this year's the year he makes a leap
Yeah, right.
in Tennessee, backing up Marcus Mariota
What didn't the Dolphins
or
just
wherever
sign
he is.
somebody?
They signed Josh Rosen. They got
Josh Rosen,
Fitzpatrick,
that's right.
Ryan Fitzpatrick and Josh Rosen.
Right. Fitzmagic. So pick him up for the first 6 weeks in fantasy,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Even though he's got like what, Amendola to throw to?
Amendola's in Detroit now.
Oh, is he?
Yeah.
Nice. Look at that, man. The league just shuffles. It's so awesome. All right, cool. So
and
go
to
ahead.
bring it back to the Bengals and talking about the league shuffling, we track kind of like off-season transactions and try to keep tabs on
I got the
teams.
tracker pulled up right now.
And by comparison, the Bengals have done so little. But I think
Let's even look at last year's offseason. Yeah, last year's offseason they did the least of any team as well. So I pulled that up just now.
part of that is the Bengals being traditionally a cheap team.
Right.
You never see the Bengals out here landing like the big splash free agents. They don't spend the money. We've talked about them being like the Raiders, not having
Right. They're a family
generational
team.
Money
Right.
outside of football.
Right.
So them being cheap with, I think, as far as being a general manager goes, getting all the guys that you're getting back from the IR is almost like striking gold in free agency. You're getting Carl Lawson back, Tyler Eifert, AJ Green back, Andy Dalton back. So I think before all the injuries, they were overachieving last year, and I think they would have come back to the median a little bit, and we started to see it, especially like getting their shit pushed in against the Chiefs. But I still think they would have been one of these teams that was in the mix at that. Can you imagine what the division would have been like in week 17 last year? Because we had Steelers, Browns, Ravens all with intrigue and playoff hopes last year.
Right.
And if the Bengals didn't have all these injuries, specifically AJ Green and Andy Dalton, like, could you imagine how fun that would have been in week 17?
Right.
So it gives us some hope. I'm higher on the Bengals heading into this season than I was last season, and we ended up looking smart for our season predictions because they
we were only like a game off, I think. Yeah.
Right. They fell off a cliff so hard at the end of the year.
Right.
But they were on pace to make us look like a bunch of fucking fools.
What was their record last year? Do you remember?
I don't remember. I think they had 5 or 6.
Yeah, because we called them for 4 games, I think.
I think I said 3, but yeah.
But either way. So yeah, Tyler Eifert's coming back again, man. He's like the little engine that could, like brave little toaster. Like he just does not give up, I mean, good on him, I guess, right?
Yeah, if he wants to play, and he
oh no, they were 6-10 last year.
Like a pretty chill mindset. Yeah, but I mean, they won.
How did we miss that?
Like 5 of their first 7 games or something. Something like that. I think they were a 1-loss team who was like 4-1 or 5-1 or something like that in the beginning of the year.
Yeah, and like you said, they just dropped off.
And then the wheels fell off.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I am probably equally as optimistic as I was last year, mainly because of their offensive line. They took a step back, in my opinion, because they lost this guy that was supposed to be this first round pick, high level stud, and they also lost a veteran. Not that I know anything about Clint Bowling whatsoever. I mean, maybe Clint Bowling is trash. I honestly don't know. But I mean, maybe that's why he retired, just because they said like, hey, we're gonna get rid of you, and because they apparently signed John Miller, a guard from Buffalo. So maybe I don't know.
Yeah,
but
never heard of that guy.
Yeah, me either.
I have heard Clint Bowling's name. I think at the least he was a steady veteran, probably.
Right.
Because he has been around a while. It's a familiar name. Yeah, it just sucks. We saw last year with the Colts, and center is obviously a much more vital position on an offensive line than guard. Especially in today's NFL, where, everybody obviously is important on the offensive line, but with Aaron Donald and the pressure up the middle, and a lot of teams are trying to focus on pressure up the middle, but we saw last year with Quentin Nelson how much that changed what the Colts were able to do on offense, and Jonah Williams was figuring to be that type of impact player, come in and start right away. He's been playing in the SEC in college against legitimate man freak defensive linemen. So yeah, it sucks, man.
I mean, we'll see if Billy Price improves as well from last year. If he makes that next step in his sophomore year. I mean, maybe. Whoops. Maybe.
Yeah, you have to expect him to. He has to.
Yeah.
Otherwise, all this. I mean, it's just like, oh, your number one draft picks on the IR. It's just more of the same for the
Right.
Bengals. You know.
They also lost Tyler Croft. So.
Yeah.
Two
Free
Tylers
agency.
down to one Tyler. But they still have Uzama, who I think made a pretty good step last year. So we'll see. They lost Perfect. They lost. Huh?
He's playing with his best friend
Right.
in Oakland.
Right, and we'll talk about that, I guess. Yeah, maybe we'll talk about it when we talk about
Hard
the Steelers.
Knocks. I'm sure they'll talk about it. I hope they'll talk about it on Hard Knocks.
But yeah, they also lost a tackle. I mean, I don't know, man. Maybe they're retooling the offensive line. Who knows? I don't know. But yeah, my overall outlook for the Bengals, pessimistic. If anything, they might have a record similar to last year, maybe a tiny bit better, because of the schedule this year. The schedule this year is not tough for the AFC North. It isn't.
Well, yeah, and they have a last place schedule too. So
right. Like the hardest
play the last place teams from the other divisions.
The hardest opponent they have that's not in their division is I guess contentious between the Patriots and the Rams. So they got the Patriots and the Rams, and then the AFC North, which is always like this like nail biting division anyways. But other than that, I mean, nobody's really impressing me. 49ers, the Bills, the Cardinals, the Jaguars, the Dolphins.
So we play the NFC West and the AFC East this year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Which actually, you know what? The Jets, I guess maybe we'll talk about them probably when we talk about the Ravens. But, man, the Jets, I think they're going to be sneaky. I think they're going to be scary good this year. Not scary good, but sneaky good. Like, you know.
They can be for sure. I think they're probably pose the most legitimate threat to the Pats in the division this year.
Right.
Which isn't to say that they are a legitimate threat. They're just the closest to a legitimate threat.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we'll see. I mean, anytime a team undergoes such a big overhaul, you never really know how it's going to work out. We haven't seen Le'Veon play.
They got so many good veterans.
I don't know if he's reported to any camp yet.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point.
But he's of the mind, his line is, I know how to get my body ready for football. And fair enough. I mean, he's shown that he does. So
yeah. So all right. Anything else you want to bring up about the Bengals as far as projections or what we're looking at moving forward with them?
No, I don't think so. I think I hit everything I wanted to talk about. They've got some. If you're a Bengals homer insider, or like to follow the Bengals, they've got two rookie quarterbacks that are basically competing for the number 3 spot and the potential to be like, well, maybe with Zach Taylor in here, they can mold this guy. One of them's Ryan Finley, who played at NC State.
Mm-hmm.
Who was kind of like the next tier down as far as like the quarterbacks for this draft were considered.
He was 4th round,
some other guy I've never heard of whose name starts with a B, but apparently he's impressing in camp. But I think unless either one of them really exceed expectations and blow the preseason out of the water, you're going to have Dalton, and then you're going to have Driscoll, and then maybe one of these guys. But it'll be interesting with Zach Taylor how that quarterback room progresses and what happens with Andy Dalton. I mean, that's been a hot topic in Cincinnati for a couple seasons now. So
right. I don't think Dalton should go anywhere. Like I said, I think their problems lie primarily and strongly in their ability to block for him.
Yeah, and if all these weapons stay healthy, and there's no reason to expect that Dalton will have anything less than at least a good season.
Dalton, Mixon, Boyd, and hold your breath, I guess, but Eifert.
And AJ back.
Yeah, right. So
yeah, I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have a season prediction, an official wins and losses,
I think we'll go over that as that'll be like our like we did
like our
last year, like when
last
we start
pod
going through the
before?
preseason.
Sounds good.
Yeah, I think it was like our last 2 weeks of the preseason we did our predictions. I want to say I don't remember, but we'll
Yeah,
figure it
that
out.
sounds good. We'll try to do a team a week, see what that looks like leading up to the season, and then do like a final
Yeah.
primer for the regular season.
Right. All right. Well, let's end off with some fill in the blanks. So fill in the blanks is something that we decided to come up with, where basically we're going to surprise each other with some questions with some blanks, and it's pretty simple. You just got to fill it in. So do you want to go first?
Sure. All right. So my first fill in the blank is the Baker Mayfield Duke Johnson drama in Cleveland is blank.
I want to say overrated, but I think here's the thing. I don't see Duke Johnson really getting used a whole lot this season. I think to look at Duke Johnson and to be like, he's in it, his heart's there, we're going to play him, as this starter or anything. I don't know. I don't want to say Duke Johnson's time in Cleveland is up, but I think he's done. So I think it's just almost like non-existent. Like it doesn't even matter, It's unfortunate, but especially when Kareem Hunt comes back, short of a major injury, I don't know. The thing with Duke Johnson is that they've actually even talked about trying to like transition him over to being like a slot receiver or something like that, which I don't think would be a bad idea because that's kind of how they used him the year before last, and he was good at it. As far as the drama with him and Baker Mayfield, Baker Mayfield, he has that personality. He's going to say what's on his mind, and he's not wrong. He's like such a team-oriented, like team-minded person, and basically his stance was like, look, if you're not with us, you're against us, and that's what his thing with Hugh was too last year, right? Yeah. So I almost consider it like a non-issue because I don't see Duke Johnson playing a whole lot, and if anything, this would make it even more of a non-issue because I don't see, them chumming up, after this. I think Duke Johnson's time in Cleveland is kind of done, if that kind of answers that. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And my word for it was going to be overblown.
Yeah, overrated, yeah. Mm-hmm.
I think it's effectively a non-issue. One, because it's interesting because it's a non-issue to me because of Duke Johnson's spot on the depth chart.
Right.
Which is what caused it in the first place, because Duke Johnson is aware of where he stands. And it's interesting because for the last several years, he's been like a favorite son to Browns fans.
Yeah.
Browns fans have really been on the Duke Johnson should be touching the ball more position.
Right.
And we talked about it last year about use him in the slot, like get him on the field more. There's no reason that Chubb can't be in the backfield and Duke in the slot, especially once the wide receiver room started getting demolished by injuries.
Right. And with Jarvis being a number one when he's not against Jarvis or anything, but he is a career slot. Like that's his where he lives and makes his money,
Yeah. So I mean, it'll be interesting to see if they move him or not. I think he's appropriately looking out for himself. And the interesting thing about Baker taking the team side is that you hardly ever see it. Players generally don't talk about other players' money, and props to Baker for just being whoever he wants to be. Like you said, this our team or for us or against us type thing has been how he has carried himself his whole his short NFL career. But I think it's a little short-sighted, and I think that who's to say in 4 years Baker's not going to be looking for the big extension.
Right.
The first offer a player gets from a team is always going to be less than what they want.
Yeah.
So Baker is almost certainly going to get to that 1 year out looking for an extension and be in kind of the same spot potentially where like, look, I know what I'm worth and I know what I deserve. And he wouldn't want Jarvis or OBJ to say like, look, you're either with us or against us. So it's kind of unprecedented,
short-sighted
for him
almost,
to speak out against a teammate like that.
Yeah.
And I think it's a mark of youth in a way. But this is what Baker is, man.
Right.
You know?
Right.
And
I don't know. 4 years from now, I think it depends on what the Browns are and what Baker Mayfield is trying to get out of football. He comes from a family of money, so is he going to be interested in the money? I don't know. But I'll tell you that if he takes the Browns to the playoffs for the next 3 years, he's going to be like a legend until the next guy manages to do it, at least, right? So does he want that fame, that prowess, that of being that legend and basically being the next LeBron James of the city of Cleveland, like owning the city, doing what he wants, when he wants, where he wants for free? Or does he want to be a Super Bowl winning quarterback, Tom Brady, whatever, and he's going to move to the next big team? That'll be interesting. We'll see what happens. I think this year will be a little bit telling, but we'll see.
Yeah.
That's an interesting thing to kind of prospect is, what Baker's motivations are and what he'll look forward to. All right. So,
you want to do one more fill in the blank?
Well, I'll do one for you.
Yep.
So the make or break factor for the Ravens this year is blank.
Lamar Jackson's progression as a passer.
As a passer?
Yeah.
So do you think that
he's got to be more capable, even on the short throws?
Mm-hmm.
I think they have. They don't have a great supporting cast around him on offense, but I think the defense is going to be so good that the supporting cast around him just has to be good enough. He has to be good enough to sustain drives and not turn the ball over, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
He started. I mean, if you look at the Kansas City game, so contrast the Kansas City game to the playoff game against the Chargers. That was the big difference. They didn't turn the ball over in Kansas City. The defense was able to, they were running the ball forever. Gus Edwards for 6 yards a clip, and being able to sustain drives, not have the silly turnovers and fumbles and things like that. And yeah, just being able to be a comfortable passer has to be their priority.
Okay.
So,
I was actually gonna say Justin Tucker, but no. Actually, I was gonna take it a step farther. I was gonna say the wide receivers because I thought about this and I thought about the idea of, Lamar Jackson's ability to throw. He's a Heisman Trophy winner. Obviously, he has good legs, right? Because of that. If I'm not mistaken, his accuracy was really good in college too. Not to say that doesn't translate, but I think that they just, the receivers can't find their spots, get the separations, get to where they need to be on the field to allow him to be confident enough to throw. Like, I don't think, as much as obviously I don't think that he's going to be the best passer in the AFC North, right? When you're in the same division as, the who we have. But I don't know if he has the confidence to throw to those guys. So I think if the receivers can get the separation, and I guess the playbook is built properly for him to be able to throw, I think he might be able to take that step. But I think that burden for me feels like it's on the receivers. So that was my take. Let's do one more for each other. But
I think confidence definitely plays a part in it, for sure. I think this year, at least, his ceiling as a passer compared to the other quarterbacks in the division is still the worst passer in the division.
For sure. Yeah. But I mean, when you've got Ben Roethlisberger, what we saw in Baker Mayfield, and again, say what you will, but Andy Dalton is still pretty good.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah, I just think he needs to focus on not being a liability. He doesn't have, he's not going to be asked to go win games because he's not ready for it.
Yeah.
Unless he made strides in the offseason. And I think Harbaugh is a plugged in enough coach to understand that. He's been relying on his defense and special teams for a while.
Yeah.
So as long as Lamar's not a liability to the team, turning the ball over and putting the defense in short field situations, I think that is the best thing that can happen for the Ravens.
Okay, let's do one more for each other. Do you want to go or do you want me to go?
Go ahead.
All right. So blank will be the first, and I this is a spoiler, I guess, because we talked about it before, but blank will be the first to 1,000 yards total in the AFC North.
And we're talking skill positions, right? Obviously not quarterbacks.
Right, obviously not quarterbacks, right?
Joe Mixon.
Yeah?
Yeah, I think he's going to be the focal point of their offense. He can catch passes, and he's the main runner.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that the Browns, I don't think that Chubb is going to be as much of a pass catching threat.
No, I don't think that's his.
As Mixon will be on his team.
Right.
And I just think Mixon will have the highest percentage of his team's yards than any of the other players.
I think that's fair.
I'll say Joe Mixon.
I was going to say Juju because I think with James Conner, it was heavily reliant on the offensive line. I don't know if he had an injury last year or maybe teams just figured him out. I don't know. But last year he had that dramatic drop-off about halfway through the season. So not to say that James Conner is not going to be, the guy that he was in the beginning of the season last year. But I think he's got some growing pains he's got to work through. So I have faith in Juju and Ben's ability to connect with Juju. And now that they don't have to worry about any of the other stuff. He has to worry about now being the only number one, but Antonio Brown did it for years, right? So, yeah. But I hadn't considered Joe Mixon, but I think that's a pretty decent take. But I'll stick with Juju, just for sake. Yeah,
it's funny. Juju is something that I hadn't considered because, you think about like the big names first,
right?
And I don't think he's not in the forefront of like the big names in the division in my head yet because the AB's been there for so long.
Mm-hmm.
But that's good, and I think part of what could play into that is honestly the lack of a supporting cast.
Yeah,
Juju's the guy now in
right.
Pittsburgh. Like, there's nobody on his heels. It's not like AB last year who had a credible number two. I think it's pretty inarguable that there's no credible number two in Pittsburgh yet. One could emerge.
Not distinguished at all.
Yeah.
I was gonna say Odell Beckham. However, his stats really are kind of surprising. Number one, and number two, I didn't want to be a homer, so there's that. All right, you got one or no?
Yeah, I got one.
All right.
Ryan Shazier will play football blank.
Never again. In Madden. How about that? Because he's still on the Madden roster. We'll play football in Madden.
Same rating as Jimmy Smith.
Yeah, that's true.
Motherfucker can't even run yet.
Yeah, and obviously, trying to make light of a situation. But, I just don't see a situation where the NFL lets him get back on a field. Maybe like 10 years from now, he does some flag football or something. I don't know.
Once the NFL has digressed to
right.
non-contact football.
Right.
Yeah, he's still... so I heard him interviewed on the Pat McAfee show this summer. And he's still very much, he's walking on his own. He just got married this offseason. That was a big deal that he was walking at his wedding.
Mm-hmm.
And he's still pounding the drum of I want to play again, and so I think he'll put in the work.
Right.
They're keeping him on the roster. He said his goal is still to be a Hall of Fame linebacker. I think it's pretty out of the question.
Yeah.
But just to mix it up a little bit, I think Ryan Shazier will play football again eventually.
I could see him, like, once he's healthy enough and cleared by doctors, like, throw him in the preseason game as almost like a
an honor.
Right, an honor thing to him, but also kind of a little bit of a darker side is the NFL saying, "Look, see, we're fine. He's good now, he's good. Right? Right, guys?"
Yeah.
So, but I don't know.
Yeah, and props to the Steelers, man, for they've still got him on the payroll.
Mm-hmm.
For supporting him. I mean, he arguably he gave up his body, his career. He broke himself for the Steelers, and I think they're doing right by him as much as they could. By keeping him on the payroll, he still gets NFL medical and rehab and all that with team doctors, and I think that's definitely the right thing to do. While veterans and retired players are out here fighting for medical and all that stuff,
which I think is an interesting conversation. Maybe we can bring that up next week or something.
But we can talk about that for sure.
But yeah, so let's wrap this up. So we're gonna be trying to do the live streams once a week before the season starts, and then during the week, like we did last season, twice a week. So one preview, one review, and that's how we'll kind of carry forward. We're still kind of contentious about, are we going to do live streams in the morning or at night? Maybe we'll kind of go back and forth. We'll see. But if you have an opinion, let us know. This should get uploaded to, Apple Podcasts and iTunes and all that stuff. So you'll be able to hear it there if you missed the live stream. And, so next week we're going to do Where Are They Now? Which is basically a look at former quarterbacks in the AFC North. We're going to talk about probably a lot of Browns because of that. And then obviously moving up the list next week is going to be the Browns. So we're going to do a review of the Browns and then more fill in the blank, and we'll see what other kind of cool segments we can come up with. So
if you've got any ideas, the videos are going to be on the YouTube channel and the Facebook. So if you've got ideas, comment there. Just let us know. Talk to us.
Yeah. I just think it's funny because you're like, oh man, the YouTube and the Facebook and the Twitter. Yeah.
The Twitter app.
That bird tweeting. Anyways, but yeah, so that'll be
like Twitch is like the fucking final frontier to me. I don't.
Right, you're like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah.
But we'll pull it together. All right, man. Sounds good. Well, I guess I'll see you. We'll see y'all next week. Take it easy,
losers.